Hello! Welcome to my vlog. I don't know if I'm doing this right. I don't care. Welcome to the Cozy Owens. I am Anna, the mom, and I'm here to talk about what drives most of you people to my page, which is Josephine. The number one question I get about her is if we knew anything about her disability before she was born. And so I kind of talked to that. But what I want it to be like is like we're sitting across the table from each other. I have my tiny glass of wine here, so feel free to pause the video and get yourself something to drink and pretend like we're best friends and I'm telling you all about it. You're in my kitchen. It's mostly messy. I have my sourdough behind me that I have to do one more stretch and pull, and then I've got dirty dishes in the sink. There's a dog right next to me. She's probably going to run away and you'll hear her nails clipping. And my husband is sitting right off camera here.
What's up?
And he promises me he's not going to make fun of me, which I, only halfway believe him. So let's go backwards in time about 4.5 years ago to the fall of 2019. When my husband and I gave away all of our baby stuff. We had 3 kids. The youngest was 1.5 years, and oh, there's my timer for my stretch and pull. The youngest was 1.5 years, and we were done having kids. I got a job, and a part-time job at my church. I'd always been in childcare, and so I started working for my church part-time, and we were just living the dream. Super stressful time in our lives because we were trying to juggle 3 kids and a job and a half. But we were making it work, and I really enjoyed being on staff at the church, so I was doing what I needed to make it work. Well, long story short, we announced to our family on Christmas Day that we were 12 weeks pregnant with our 4th kid. Most of the reactions we got were very polarized. Your fingers are in the camera. We're very polarized. People, now you're shaking the camera. God.
I was laughing.
His elbows are on the table.
I'm sorry.
The reactions we got were very polarized. It was like screaming and super excited, or really rude comments about, where babies come from, right? And I was like, yeah, okay. But things were great. I always had really healthy pregnancies. My first 3 were midwife births, but this 4th one we had decided to use the hospital the whole way, and I think that was by God's design because she ended up needing a lot of extra help, and I ended up needing a lot of extra help. So we had my 20-week ultrasound. Everything was fine. Nothing was weird. She was in a weird position, so which is very normal. They couldn't get all of the scans, and so they said, just come back at 24 weeks for your next month's appointment, and we'll get those scans. And I'm like, okay, that's a very common thing that happens. My 2 younger children were with me in the doctor's office when we did that ultrasound, and that just tells you, it kind of dates it, because this would have been February of 2020, and if you're watching this, then you lived through 2020 more than likely, and you know exactly what was coming. So by the time I came back at my 24-week appointment, the world had shut down. So everybody was wearing masks, everybody was fighting for toilet paper. Things were really scary, and we didn't really know what to do in the world. It was very terrifying. So I went to my 24-week ultrasound. Children were not allowed. I had to be temped, right? You guys remember this? Temped, masked as a pregnant woman. And got those extra pictures and the ultrasound done. And I was waiting for the doctor to come in, and he came in and he slid an ultrasound picture across the table, and he said, I think your child might have hydrocephalus. There was like a little pocket of what looked to be of black, which he explained was typically fluid. And hydrocephalus is a buildup of a fluid on the brain that can cause something called intracranial pressure, ICP, and you have to have a shunt placed to drain the fluid down, and you just pee it out. So I was real casual about it. I told my coworkers, and they prayed for me, but I was like, oh, it's no big deal. It's not a big deal. So we went to Vanderbilt Children's Hospital and to talk to the maternal fetal center. And it was the first time I'd ever been in Vanderbilt Children's Hospital. I didn't ever have a reason to go. And we walked in. There were tables set up to run your temperature, ask you a bunch of questions. You guys all remember this. Has anybody been sick? This was the very beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Very beginning. And so we went through those checkpoints. I'm wearing a mask. We put gloves on. And I went to the doctor's tower. Our hospital is connected to a doctor's tower and a hospital wing. We went to the doctor's tower. My husband and I got in the elevator by ourselves. There was nobody else in there, just happenstance. And I had a mental breakdown in the elevator. I just started bawling. And he's like, what's wrong? I'm like, I'm just so overwhelmed. We sat in a waiting room where there was everybody was spread out, right? 6 foot rule. And they called me back. Actually, I remember taking a picture of us, just a little selfie, because I said, I want to remember this moment, potentially in the future, if I really wanted to remember it. And then they called me back, and he got up and walked over, and the nurse goes, oh, you can't be back here, because remember, this was the beginning of COVID, and we really didn't understand the virus and how it spread and all the things, right? And so there were techs and nurses, but the doctors were at home. I sat and had an hour and a half long ultrasound and fell asleep. And then they got me put into an exam room, an exam room. And then they went out and got my husband and brought him back. So he was allowed to be in the exam room, but he was not allowed to be in the ultrasound room, so whatever. And so we were in our room together. And as soon as the door shut, I just ripped my mask off, and I was like, I can't breathe. I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed, and I'm pregnant. I can't wear this thing. And so we popped up the doctor on my phone on Zoom, and he read the ultrasound, and he told me, he's like, so your child, I don't believe has hydrocephalus, but I think she has a whole bunch of other things wrong with her. And I remember my throat closing up, and my stomach fell into my shoes, and I was like, I'm sorry, what? Because it was just really surreal. He said, we think she's got this weird thing going on with her finger where she was making a claw like this. Her corpus callosum, which is the space between your two front ventricles not ventricles.
Sutures.
No.
Coronal plates.
No. Lobes, 2 frontal lobes. The space right here was double the size it should be, and that's called your corpus callosum. And then her feet were clubbed. That was it, right? I thought there were 4 things. And her forehead had stuck out like this. Her forehead was bossed, right? And so he said, at this point, it's a black and white flat photo, 2D photo. We don't really know what's going on, but you need to get some. I never do the genetic testing when I was pregnant, and so they said, you need to get genetic testing done. We need to see you back in about a month, because she was tiny. It was only 26 weeks at this point, tiny. So I went and I got genetic testing done.
The maternal.
And I had to, so all of the places were closed because of COVID, and it was really weird. So a lady came to my house in full PPE. She looked like an astronaut. It's the first time I'd ever seen somebody like that. And it made me really, really anxious, right? So she came and she drew my blood and she sent it into the lab. And then 2 weeks later, I sat down with the maternal fetal center again, right? So it had been a month in between. But in those months, we thought we were going to have a baby. I personally thought I was going to have a baby and then not bring her home. I thought I was going to birth her, she was going to die, and I was going to leave her at the hospital. And my third child was in the nursery that is now Josie's room. And I remember cleaning out her closet. I was changing out clothes or something, right? Seasons changing. And I just remember thinking I don't want to set this room up for Josephine because she may not actually come home with us. I don't want to do that. at all. And I just was like, I wouldn't let myself think about it. But the moments I did try and think about it, I just couldn't handle it. It was so overwhelming. And so we went back to the doctor, and we had our small group come over. Everybody prayed. They had laid hands on my belly. We were, we believe in like that healing can happen, and so we were just praying for healing. And I was just very confident that I was going to go back, and they were going to say, "Oh, just kidding," right? And that is absolutely not what happened. And we went back, and they said, "No, nothing's changed. Everything is exactly the same. But we think that you need to give birth here." It was a different hospital than I was planning on giving birth, and you need to prepare for a NICU stay. They brought in palliative care, which is a department that deals with terminal patients and their families. And we were sitting there looking at palliative care, like, what is palliative care? We had no experience in the medical field whatsoever. And so when she came in the room, we stopped her and we're like, we don't want to be rude, but why are you here? Like, is she going to die? And her name was Molly. And Molly actually was a big advocate for us in the NICU and came to visit and all these things. I actually saw her at Josie's last surgery too. So we left. I'm going to end the story. We've been running for about 11 minutes. I'm going to end the story at about 26, 28 weeks pregnant. We have no idea what's going on, but the doctor thinks it's very, very serious. They ruled out trisomy 18, 14, and 21. Trisomy 21 is also known as Down syndrome, so they ruled all those out. But we were very concerned that her brain was not functioning the way it should, and that it was causing her bones to stick out like this, causing her fingers to do this, and causing her feet to curl up. So we were really faced with like the possibility of having a severely neurologically disordered child. If we lived in a different state, we maybe would have been allowed to end the pregnancy when we first found the anomalies, but that was never going to be part of our story. That's not our choice that we ever wanted to make. And so we just looked at each other and we said, we'll love this baby for as long as we have her. We don't know anything about her. And they kept assuring us, like, it's a 2D black and white photo or, video. We absolutely don't know what's going on yet. So don't freak out yet. So there we are. I want to do a series just kind of putting this out there for posterity. Maybe one day Josephine will watch these and see her mom talk about her. And that got me a little emotional. If this is something you want to see, you know the drill. Please like this, subscribe, comment what you want to see more of. And cheers to the next time we meet.